received, or you might not know yet, we just received the English and Portuguese version of Kyoshu Sama's message for this year's beginning of spring service. And what a powerful message it is. And I would like to study a little bit of that with you today, read it together with you. Before we begin, I'd like to thank everybody who has already enrolled into the sponsorship program. It's really nice to have the support of each of you who are already in all of your families who have started to enroll. As you know, our objective is to reach 150 families hopefully this year. So if you have friends, family who would like to participate, who are not aware of the sponsorship program yet, please make sure you share with them this information so that they can participate themselves. It's available on our website, worldchurchofmessiahusa.org. I'd also like to remind you that our pages are being consolidated into one page on Facebook, World Church of Messiah USA page. Okay, so all our major posts, most important information is now coming through that page. So if you notice that some of our pages might not have the most recent information, it is because little by little we are consolidating everything into that major one page. So if you haven't subscribed to that page yet, please do so today. Please let your friends and your family know that we are consolidating to that one page. This will make administration of the page easier and at the same time focus all information in one place, make it for accessible to everybody in that one location. So make sure you check that out and make sure you sign up today if you haven't so already. And I would also like to thank all those who will eventually join our sponsorship program. We're really looking forward to bring this gospel of salvation to as many people as possible. And this program makes that possible for that. So we look forward to having you and your family, your friends joining us in bringing this gospel of salvation to as many people as possible. Let us begin today's study. I'd like to begin with the sacred word, sacred oath. With great fear of God, we acknowledge that the Lord God is our true Father, the one and only God. We revere Meishu Sama as the model for all humanity and as our own example to follow. Meishu Sama, who was born anew as a true child of God, the Messiah, by receiving the divine will that God accomplished in heaven. We believe that Jesus Christ, who 2,000 years ago embodied the name of Messiah, the name most holy and high, is serving the Lord God in unity with Meishu Sama. And we regard the messages of Kyoshu Sama, who reveals to us the will of Meishu Sama in this material world, as the sole, absolute, and irreplaceable foundation in advancing our mission here on earth. Words of prayer. God, I acknowledge that you are alive. Within me, you are alive. I thank you for nurturing me to be newly born as your child. May this blessing be shared with all. In the name of Messiah, which is one with Meishu Sama, I surrender myself to you. Please use me as you wish. So, as always, everything that we come to feel, everything that we come to experience during this study, let us recognize that God is raising his hand of Jorei within each one of us, shining his light so that all these thoughts, all these emotions can come out so that we may return them to God through the name of Messiah, together with all humanity and all creation, surrendering ourselves back to God in order to be born anew as God's children, Messiahs. Today I'd like to study a little bit, like I said, Kyoshu Sama's Rishun beginning of spring message and the faith that Meishu Sama had. Now, what kind of faith Meishu Sama had, and what is our aim, right? What kind of faith should we seek? Modeling ourselves on Meishu Sama. So the hymn I chose was published in January of this year, and it reads as follows. In the depths of your despair, O Meishu Sama, you sought and sought faith, and finally encountered God. As Kyosama shares, right? In the depths of your despair, O Meishu Sama, you sought and sought faith, and finally encountered God. So, the conclusion of Meishu Sama's faith that he sought in the middle of his despair was his encounter with God and fulfilling God's true purpose. With that in mind, I'd like to read with you today the message by Kyosho Sama from the beginning of spring service on February 4th, 2021. Sorry, the air is a little dry here, so my voice is a little off. Congratulations, everyone, on today's World Church of Messiah beginning of spring service. First, I would like to thank all the staff at Hotel Okura Kobe for their understanding and cooperation, as well as their tremendous support. They made this service possible, and for that, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to everyone at the hotel. Thank you very much. Last year's beginning of spring service was a historic day when all of you began to move forward with the name World Church of Messiah, having an unwavering determination to inherit the divine will of Meishu Sama, who founded this church more than 70 years ago. I humbly welcome that day together with all of you, full of hope in my heart. And on that very day, I offered my sincere gratitude to Meishu Sama for permitting us to take part in the resurrection of World Church of Messiah, and left the venue with a renewed spirit to do my utmost in order to achieve the will of Meishu Sama. As many of you are aware, right, this was a historic moment, very epic, because the true name that Meishu Sama chose for his church 70 years ago was World Church of Messiah. And for years, 2 years after Meishu Sama passed, that name was taken down and wasn't used. And it was a huge permission, huge blessing that we are receiving to be able to once again truly serve in this World Church of Messiah that Meishu Sama founded in the salvation of all humanity. Kyosho Sama continues. 1 year has passed since then, and today, looking back on the path we have taken, I strongly feel that Meishu Sama has been guiding us this whole year so that he can carry out his entirely new work of salvation on a global scale. The work that he has been wishing to advance for a long time. As we know, right, Meishu Sama took down the names of the churches back in 1947, 1948, and created World Church of Messiah, and put the name World into World Church of Messiah to bring this message, this gospel of salvation to the entire world, right? It was something that was beyond Eastern or Western culture. One true church, World Church of Messiah. I believe Meishu Sama has great expectations for the future of World Church of Messiah and is using us as pioneers representing all humanity. This is one point that I like to just stop here for a second, because as we are sharing this message, especially between the membership and new people that are coming in, many times people ask me, right? Well, this is great that I know this, but how about the rest of humanity? How about everybody else, right? And one thing that Kirsama makes very clear for us here is that right now we are being used as pioneers, representing all humanity, right? Pioneers, we're going before them, and we're being blessed to know this truth, to help make this bridge, right, between all humanity and God in this new phase of creation. Doesn't mean we're special or we're better, but we have been chosen to do that. And it is our duty to bring this to as many people as possible, right? But right now, it's very important for us to grasp that. Right? For a long time, I would also ask myself, well, right, what about this person? What about that person? Well, this is great that I know, but for example, my family member doesn't understand that. That's not the point right now. The point is, do I get it? Right? What is my relationship with God at this moment, who's alive in the center of my soul? And Kirsama continues. All of you have been able to respond to the expectations Meishu-sama has for you, to courageously dive into the divine work that Meishu-sama is showing you, and to work as hard as you can for its fulfillment. Seeing how dedicated all of you have been, Meishu-sama must be truly delighted now. Simply thinking about how Meishu-sama may be feeling now makes me very emotional. God is extending his mercy to those who to this day continuously yearn for light and power, the posture we had until very recently, and is gathering them within us as to welcome them into his heaven. This portion also caught my attention very much, right? Because Kirsama here clearly shows our posture, right? Humanity's posture, our individual posture up to now, right? We've been yearning for light. We've been yearning for power. But truly, this is how we used to be and what God has forgiven. And what God is here collecting in the center of our souls, right? To return to heaven with all of them within us into his heaven. When I believe now we should be truly yearning to please God, right? To fulfill God's will, right? Not yearning for light and power to use as we will or as we wish or as we desire, but to truly yearn to fulfill God's desire, God's wish. So this posture that we've had until very recently, God is gathering them within us so as to welcome them into his heaven. As it has been so until today, my tasks are to intercede with God on their behalf through my prayers, together with all of you, and with the permission of God, to serve in the work of sharing the true grace of God with everyone and everything, not forgetting the fact that we are the ones who were made to know this true grace before many others. And so it's not just us being pioneers and knowing this truth before many others. We have this task to intercede on behalf of all these. Through our prayers, return to God and share this grace of God with everyone and everything. What a responsibility we have at this very moment. Now, the symbol we have raised at the center of the altar today is one that is based on the symbol Meishu-sama himself designed and started to use at the time of founding World Church of Messiah in 1950. In other words, this symbol is imbued with the will and love of Meishu-sama in founding World Church of Messiah. So for all of us who did watch the service, it is in closed caption. It's available on our site. It's available on Japan's site. At this moment in the lecture, Kyosama actually stops and he points towards the symbol. And you'll notice that the symbol there is not the same symbol that we have here, for example, on our page. It is the original symbol that Meishu-sama originally designed. Right? And you're going to see that there's a difference. And honestly, when I saw this for the first time, it really moved me. How beautiful that symbol is. And at the same time, it really amazed me. And I was kind of shocked, right, to see how far away we actually became from Meishu-sama's true design, true symbol, right? If you take a look at the many different versions of the symbol that we have, it's amazing how different it is, right? I want to say how warped, but how truly far, and how blessed we truly are. And I believe that if it were not for Kyoshi-sama's presence, permission, and existence, we probably wouldn't even know that true symbol because it got forgotten in time. And we wouldn't have the permission to now be using that symbol as it will be in the years to come, as things get sorted out so that can be used overseas. But also here in this message, what really touches me is how Kyosho-sama sees that symbol for the church. And I can say that I never thought about it and about its sacredness as we're about to see here today. From today, you will be using this symbol as the symbol of the church. In my eyes, I can almost see the huge smile on Meishu-sama's face, which makes me very happy too. This is what I think. Meishu-sama was able to create this symbol only because this symbol existed within him. At the same time, Meishu-sama strongly wanted us to know that this symbol also exists within all people. If not, why did he place this symbol on heaven and earth on the official church publication at that time? I've always wondered, right, for many years, where did Meishu-sama come up with such a symbol, right? Where did he come up with such a concept? And here we can see that it's something much deeper than simply just thinking of a symbol to represent the church, right? As Kyosho-sama is showing us, and something that I never thought to that level would have been impossible without Kyosho-sama's guidance, right? This very symbol existed and exists within Meishu-sama. That's why he was able to create such a symbol. And Meishu-sama wanted us to know that this symbol also exists within all people. I believe this symbol signifies the fulfillment of God's will of creation. The horizontal line represents all creation, including time and space. The vertical line penetrates the horizontal line, meaning God's will of creation penetrates all creation. More importantly, there is a circle or a dot at the center of it. This dot represents Lord God who shines gloriously. To summarize, this symbol signifies that God's will of creation, of bearing his very own children, penetrates all, and the one who governs everything is Lord God. The central existence of each one of us is not this I existing within us, but yes, it is a Lord God who is one and only. The very center of our soul is the Lord God who is one and only, and not this consciousness that I think of me as I. Before we were sent to this world in heaven where God lives, this symbol together with the name of Messiah, was engraved on the souls of all humanity. It's not just a symbol symbolizing what the church means, what God's plan is according to Meishu Sama's sacred word. It was engraved in the souls of all humanity. Coming into this world with this mark engraved within us means that heaven exists within us, even now at the center of each one of our consciousnesses. Heaven, where God's will of creation has been accomplished. This mark is alive within us. It is alive within all humanity. Now, this portion of Kyo-sama's message really struck home to me, right? This mark is alive within us. At the very center, God's life. God is alive at the very center of this mark within each one of us, within all humanity. You know, for a long time, I treated this symbol not with this sacred understanding of it, but truly lightly, right? Changed the way that it's colored. I used it for many different types of printings, right? And different promotional materials and many other ways, and very lightly, very scattered, thinking of it just as a physical mark, right? And truly, today, it's much clearer to see how disrespectful that posture and that attitude of mine was towards God, not seeing the true essence and the true meaning of what this symbol means, the true sacredness of what this symbol holds, right? The fact that it's very alive within all of humanity. Kyo-sama continues, within us, God who shines gloriously lives, and the path to be born anew as God's children, as Messiahs, has been accomplished. Everyone, this is an unchanging fact. One more time. Within us, God who shines gloriously lives, and the path to be born anew as God's children, as Messiahs, has been accomplished. Everyone, this is an unchanging fact. No matter what we do, no matter how we try to hide it, no matter how we try to sell it, right? It's an unchanging fact. God shines gloriously and lives, and the path to be born anew as God's children, as Messiah, has been accomplished. What a great gospel of salvation we were made to know through Meishu Sama. Now, each one of us needs to decide whether to accept this fact or deny it, whether to believe in it or disregard it as an imaginary story. You know, many of us who've participated in these studies, who've discussed, always ask, right? If God is in control of everything, God knows everything, what about free will? Kyo-sama here is clearly stating, we need to choose. We need to decide. God is giving us the choice. Are we going to accept this fact or deny it? Are we going to believe in it or disregard it as an imaginary story? It is an unchanging fact, but it is a choice for each one of us. But you must know this. God sent Meishu Sama to this world so that all humanity could recall this grave fact, this truly precious salvation, and serve God who prepared this grace for us. That's why we are here. We didn't come to live this earthly life. There's a bigger purpose for each and every single one of us. To recall this great fact, this truly precious salvation, and serve God who prepared this grace for us. Why was it necessary for God to send Jesus to the world? Why was it necessary for him to put Jesus on the cross? I feel that God is now trying hard to let us know, even just a little, the answer to these questions. Right? It's a question everybody has asked for a millennia. Why was it necessary for that to happen? Why was it necessary for Jesus to come, for Jesus to be on the cross in the first place? But we are now learning the true meaning of that. In order to make each one of us his very own children, God redeemed, purified, and delivered us who dishonored him. Or as we read in previous studies, Mishama said, were it not for the atonement of sins, all life would have been eliminated, right? We couldn't keep living. But it wasn't just to keep living. God redeemed, purified, and delivered us for us to become his very own children, to make each one of us his very own children, messiahs. Salvation is already accomplished within us. Meishu Sama believed in this. He believed that salvation was accomplished within him. But as we saw in Masak Sama's video, right? Just because salvation is accomplished doesn't mean it ends there, right? We need to accept that. As Kirsama just said, right? A few slides back. We need to decide if we're going to believe and accept this truth or not. But Meishu Sama believed in this. He believed that salvation was accomplished within him. In 1930, Meishu Sama wrote a sacred word entitled, "The Life of Faith I Have Walked." In it, looking back at the time he entered the path of faith, he recounted how his life had been full of misery, agony, and suffering, and how he overcame the despair he was in. He wrote, "Suddenly, my soul longed for faith. 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 I thought that faith was the only way to be saved from the suffering of my heart, body, and life. Deeply, so deeply had the harsh reality of life surrounded me and my heart like a thick ice wall. At the very least, I wanted to look up at the warm light of faith, somewhere in the sky above me. This act in itself relieved my soul." Meishu Sama is saying that he looked up at the warm light of faith, somewhere in the sky above him. I believe that this somewhere in the sky above him, in fact, meant God who existed at the center of his consciousness. God is always calling us with his voice to come back to him. Meishu Sama, I believe, responded to this voice of God and turned his heart to God. And that is why the love of God, who is the source of salvation, quietly flowed into the heart of Meishu Sama. This expression by Kirsama also is very interesting, right? Meishu Sama turned his heart to God in the center of his consciousness. And God didn't come storming in, right? It wasn't trumpets like you see in a Hollywood movie where you have the voice of God coming from the clouds. God, who is the source of salvation, quietly flowed into the heart of Meishu Sama. Quietly flowed into the heart of Meishu Sama. When I come to think of it, I believe Meishu Sama was certain that God was alive within him. He was convinced that even though there was no visible sign, salvation was already accomplished in heaven, existing at the center of his consciousness. That is why he was able to receive the divine revelation of the transition from night to day, to say with absolute certainty and conviction that the world free from sin and impurity, the world from disease, poverty, and conflict, that is, the world of great divine light without any darkness, can be established. And to feel, in his very last years on earth, the enormous joy of being born anew as the Messiah, of becoming an eternal being. This conviction of Meishu Sama, or rather, this faith of Meishu Sama, is the true faith and the one that we have to have. Faith does not exist so that the various wishes of humans can be fulfilled. I think I shared in a previous study with all of you, right? For many years, that's what I thought faith was. I prayed to God to get me what I need. I prayed to God to fulfill what I want. I prayed to God so my dreams may come true. That is not why faith exists. That is us using God, right? As in the beginning, right? We saw the our old selves, right? Yearning for light and power, seeking God's light and power to fulfill what we want, our needs. That is not why faith exists. This conviction of Meishu Sama, or rather this faith of Meishu Sama, is the true faith and the one that we have to have. Faith does not exist so that the various wishes of us humans can be fulfilled. Rather, it exists so that God can accomplish his will. God created faith for us to serve God in accomplishing God's will. How different this is, this concept, right? How revolutionizing. We are allowed to seek and to walk a path of faith, to serve God in the accomplishment of his will. Till very recently, I didn't see the world like that. I didn't think like that. How blessed we are to know this truth. We may not be able to see, sense, or feel that the divine will has been accomplished, but we can believe in it, can't we? That is why God prepared faith. God prepared faith so that we can believe that his divine will has been accomplished. We have to be able to voice that out to God, right? If we truly believe that. True faith. We may not be able to see, sense, or feel that the divine will has been accomplished, but we can believe in it, can't we? That is why God prepared faith. Meishu Sama taught us that faith is to believe in things unseen. And at the same time, he told us over and over again the importance and difficulty of believing in things unseen. In one of his hymns, Meishu Sama wrote, "Even though it cannot be seen with human eyes, the plan of God is already accomplished in the spiritual world." If God, through Meishu Sama, is saying that his plan has already been accomplished in the spiritual world, how can we mere humans deny it? Look at this question posed to us by Kyosho Sama. Meishu Sama is clearly stating that God's plan has been accomplished. Are we going to deny Meishu Sama? Are we going to deny that fact in which Meishu Sama stated? And since our true self actually belongs to heaven, let us firmly believe that God has already accomplished his work of salvation in heaven, in the spiritual world, and return all glory to him. This, I believe, is how we can truly pay our due respect to God. Let us firmly believe that God has already accomplished his work of salvation in heaven, in the spiritual world, and return all glory to him. This, I believe, is how we can truly pay our due respect to God. In his hymn, Meishu Sama wrote, "Know this, my followers, the key to true faith is to pay due respect to others." I feel that what Meishu Sama wanted us to know through this hymn was how we need to pay our due respect to God. Look how profound this is, okay? If I had read this years ago without Kyoshi Sama's guidance, know this, my followers, the key to true faith is to pay due respect to others, I would have thought, right? It's to pay our due respect to people around me, to those I know. But we are talking about true faith here. The key to true faith in God. A faith that God created to serve, for us to serve his will. I feel what Meishu Sama wanted us to know through this hymn was how we need to pay our due respect to God. We talk about truly God-centered, right? Only Kyoshi Sama is able to do this, to bring us to this understanding, to bring us to see the world in a truly God-centered way, as Meishu Sama saw and centered his faith. How blessed we are. You know, it's not enough to say that, right? It's not enough to express how grateful to have Kyoshi Sama bring us to this understanding. And he continues, "We have a duty to return to heaven and say to God, O God, you have accomplished the work of salvation within me and within everyone. At the same time, we must surrender ourselves to God with a feeling of, please use me in the work of creation that makes all things new." This is how we can pay our due respect to God, recognizing this accomplishment of God's work of salvation within us and everyone, and ask God to use us in his work of salvation, in making all things new, surrendering the whole of ourselves back to God. We have a duty. It's not a choice. We have a duty to return to heaven and say to God, O God, you have accomplished the work of salvation within me and within everyone. And at the same time, we must surrender ourselves to God with a feeling of, please use me in the work of creation that makes all things new. Not just saying it to God, right? We have a feeling of, we're asking God to use us in his work of creation. We're committing ourselves to God, as Meishu Sama did, right? We have to surrender all of ourselves, heart, mind, soul, back to God, with the desire to be used in God's work of creation, in making all things new. Faith, in short, is the work of Sone. Faith, in short, is the work of Sone. When I first read this, at first it kind of shook me, right? Well, faith is the work of Sone, right? Faith is to believe in the invisible, right? To believe that God's work of salvation has been done. To serve in that work that is invisible. Sawing is invisible, is it not? We are doing that through the very work of sawing, right? As we express to God, you have accomplished the work of salvation within me and within everyone. We're expressing that through sawing to God. As we return to heaven and say that to God, we are also asking God to use us in this work of creation that makes all things new. Faith, in short, is the work of sawing. So let us offer to God faith of believing in things unseen. Let us offer to God the faith of believing in things unseen. The kind of faith Meishu Sama held. And let us respond to the will of Meishu Sama, who, just before his ascension, taught us that from now on we enter the world of sawing. More than ever, our service to God, our faith to God, is through sawing. Let us offer to God the faith of believing in things unseen. The kind of faith Meishu Sama held. And let us respond to the will of Meishu Sama, who just before his ascension taught us, from now on we enter the world of sawing. And together with all humanity, all its paternal and maternal ancestors, and all creation, let us express our deepest gratitude to God for allowing us to serve in the fulfillment of his will through our sawing. May the true comfort and hope existing in the name of Messiah fill you, everyone, and everything. Thank you very much. This is a lot for us to really go deep into and study, reflect, and put into practice. Let's live our faith as Meishu Sama did, as Kyo Sama is guiding us, and serve through our sawing. Serve God in this work of creation. Express our gratitudes to God for the opportunity to be used in such a way and to be able to pioneer before all humanity in this amazing work of creation that God is fulfilling. Thank you so much for joining us today, and may all glory and honor be returned to God